Welcome. Thank you for checking out this video. Tonight, I am going to ramble a bit about relationships, and I want to give my take on some of the things that have been helping me to develop certainly more fulfilling relationships in my life. And when I say relationships, I'm talking about friendships. I'm talking about business relationships. I'm talking about dating relationships. All of these things that I'm going to talk about are overarching principles that I do my best to follow, and I do my best to put a lot of time into thinking about these things. So this is a video for the fellas. Ladies, listen in if you choose to. I'm not talking to you tonight. So I came to a point in my life where I truly just wasn't satisfied with the quality of relationships that I had. I started to have some success at certain things, and I found that nobody was nearly as excited about it as I was. I started to make some positive changes in my life, and I didn't see those positive changes reflected in the people who I chose to spend time with. And I was wondering, what gives, man? And I sort of came to the realization that I needed to adjust my expectations to what the reality of the situation was. And I would say that my expectations were way off because I was for such a long time brainwashed completely, bamboozled, if you will, by media, by TV shows, by movies, by cartoons that I would watch. Hell, even MySpace had a top 8. Like, I need to choose 8 people to surround myself with to put in my top 8. Now, I understand that that's not a realistic thing to expect, number one, just to be always surrounded by so many people. The way I see it, that's not healthy either. I'm also reading my notes, so thank you for bearing with me. So I had to understand myself first, what my expectations were of a relationship. And then I had to decide and really ask myself, is this a realistic thing to expect? Is it realistic to expect all these people that I spend my time with to act like these people in TV shows and movies and cartoons, and always be sharing the banter, always being supportive of one another, always being around despite what you have going on despite what they have going on in their own life and what I have going on in mine. And it turns out that those two things weren't jiving. And once I realized that, and I was able to put some time into setting more realistic expectations, I began to have a much better time. The next thing that I started to get good at was learning to enjoy my own company. I wasn't getting what I needed from other people, so I decided to learn to get it from myself. I had a different idea of what fun was compared to a lot of the people who I was hanging out with. And so it was really scary at first, very terrifying. However, now I go to dinner by myself. If I feel like I want to go and get some drinks, I can do that on my own. If I want to go see some live music, I don't hesitate anymore to go out by myself and to do that. And the expectation is that I'm going to have a great time. And typically I find that the reality is the same. So, and this goes especially for dating, but now that I have set up my own awesome, fun social life for myself, it's much easier for me to invite people to come and join me to do some of the things that I like versus always having to go out to satisfy this social urge, as it were, doing things that I didn't necessarily agree with, that I didn't always enjoy, and that I was doing more or less to simply go through the motions. So once I got really good at enjoying my own company and doing the kinds of things that I thought were fun, I began to develop really an abundance mindset. And what that entails is that knowing that regardless of what happens, that I'm going to be taken care of. Essentially, it's the ability to set standards and easily let something go if it doesn't meet those standards. So I have certain expectations now, more realistic expectations of how I expect or how I request friends to act. I have certain expectations for people who I'm going to do business with. I have certain expectations of the women that I'm going to allow into my life. And if any of those things fall short, listen, I know I'm going to go out this weekend, I'm going to have a good time, and I'm potentially going to meet 100 other people who enjoy the things that I enjoy, who are truly cool people, who are truly interesting, and who are going to enjoy my company as much as I enjoy theirs. So I'm going to throw this out there as well in a religious sense, or if you're like me, more of a spiritual idea, is that there's a higher power out there that has a plan for you. And it takes a huge amount of courage to go with the program, to sort of surrender yourself to what the program is, what the plan is going to be. First, I enjoy my own company. Now I've got this great abundance mindset. There was still something missing. Being social involves experiencing a lot of emotions, or in this case, the way that I'm going to refer to them is motivations. So what are my motivations for going out and having a good time, for meeting people, for being social, for making these connections? Well, again, I had to start out what is the current state of affairs in my life. And for me, I was motivated a lot by the fear of being alone. So again, simply because of this fear, I was putting myself into situations where I wasn't actually satisfied. And it caused me to develop a lot of social anxiety because there was this underlying fear that at any moment I could say something or do something and all of my friends were going to be like, "You suck, goodbye." And then I would be by myself. So now, since I've more or less conquered that fear and I go out and do things on my own, I go out and do things that I enjoy, I'm no longer motivated by that. I'm motivated by the success that I have. I'm motivated by being the best person that I can be. And I'm motivated by sharing the gifts that I have. And I'm motivated by having a lot of fun, which is what I go out and do. Then sort of a secondary benefit of that is once I really understood what my motivations were, I started to be able to recognize the motivations and emotions of the people who I was interacting with. And that is becoming even better, becoming more and more good, because it's helping me to steer clear with far more advanced notice of people who have malicious intent. And clearly I want to stay away from those kinds of people. recognizing these motivations in people also deepened my ability to forgive, and then not only to forgive, but to forgive and let go. And that I the way I see it, that all of that really adds into the abundance mindset that I have. And so forgive, don't forget. We can talk about expectation versus reality here. I expect them to act one way, and because I can understand what the motivations are, I can set a more realistic expectation of what that's going to be, and I can mediate the amount of effort and the amount of contact that I have with some of these people. The last thing on my list is values. And those really deep intrinsic value is the deepest common ground that I'm able to stand on with another person. And the more values that I share with someone, the more deeply we're able to connect. So in other words, the fewer values I share with someone, the more shallow the connection is going to be. Now, that's not to say that it's be all end all to share every single one of my values with another person. That just gives me another measuring stick to say, this is the one value that we share together. This is what kind of connection we can have. So I have friends who really only value like having a good time. And when I want to have a good time, those are some of the first people that I hit up. I have other friends who value building certain skills. And so when I am interested in learning a skill or getting help with something that requires that skill, I reach out to that person. Then I also have people in my life who are more driven by their personal and spiritual success and personal growth and building a business and all these other things that I value. And so our connection is much deeper. And none of those scenarios are bad or good. They simply are what they are. So then, to sum all of this up, ultimately, it's my responsibility as a man to go out and to build these relationships and to hold myself accountable to these standards and these lessons that I've learned, to make sure that the relationships that I have are the highest quality relationships possible. The way I see it, the essence of being a masculine entity, a man, is that it is my responsibility to create. And so at the end of the day, if I'm not willing to go out and create the kind of relationships that I want, nobody else is going to share that burden or take that burden. It's all on me. Thank you again for watching this video. I would love to hear about any successful tips or strategies, or what are some of the ways that you think about building the relationships in your life. So you can comment those, like, subscribe, share, comment twice or 3 times. And all that being said, see you soon.